Well, good morning, and almost caught napping there. Why not? It's 5:45 in the morning, and there's my breakfast again. You say, why do I eat so many eggs? Well, it's the name of the program, Break an Egg. So I have to break some every morning, and one way or another, it does seem to keep me focused on the good old egg. And coming up with different names for a program, including egg, gets more and more difficult. I saw this little character yesterday. If I can get him up. No, perhaps I can't. Oh yes, there I can. I thought that this was highly amusing because I actually tapped into one site that has pictures and so on, and just tapped in gangster, and I wondered what would come up. And this little chap came up, and I thought he was highly amusing. The old Tommy gun or machine gun or whatever it is in his arm, and a cigar in his mouth, and the trilby on. Don't read anything into that because I wear trilbies. But I mean, myself and Harrison Ford wear trilbies. Who could ask for anything more? Right, I'm sorry. I've woken up full of beans. I was going to say pea and vinegar, but woken up full of beans this morning. I did get rather a better night's sleep than I have for quite some time, and I suppose really that when life is treating you well, you sleep well, and when it's not, you toss and turn and so on. And I'm happy to say that I didn't have too much problem getting to sleep last night, and that my mind was fairly clear of problems. And why shouldn't it be? But, you know, it's amazing some of the things that are going on in our society, because I was talking to a friend last night, and she said, the world is in one hell of a mess, Keith. And actually, she's right. It is. It's every time you turn, there is chaos and mayhem and things that are really not going at all well. But the one or two things I think that do stand out that begin to worry me, because there's a trend, and one is crime. And it appears that a young thug who is a kickboxer hit with his feet, or kicked with his feet, a police officer in front of an oncoming bus. And that the, excuse me, oh, I thought the cold had gone. No, it's I went for my flu jab yesterday, by the way. Ooh. Very nice to have a chat to the lovely nurse. And it's all over in about 3 seconds, but she did remind me that I should get a shingles shot too. They are worried about people who are approaching 80 and shingles, and I understand. I've never had them, but I understand it's a particularly nasty thing to get, so I shall pop down and get that done as well. And those are the things which I do use my local GP for, and a very, very good GP she is as well. Anyway, back to the kickboxer who hit a young policeman and pushed him into the path of an oncoming bus. And there was a crowd. And who came to his aid? Nobody. Because they were all too busy filming the incident. Now, it's all very well to punch holes in the regular media. I've been used to it for years. I even took my one of my priests to task one day because from the pulpit he more or less said everything was the fault of the media, and I said, "Oi, you got three chaps who are journalists in your congregation. You better tone it down." And God bless him. The next week he got up into the pulpit and he said, "I don't wish to offend, but." So yes, it's all the fault of the media, but the fact of the matter is that widespread use of phones for this sort of thing, and everybody wanting to get their few minutes of fame, and not to do anything particularly consistently, are willing to stand around and see something like that happening, and all they think of is, "My goodness me, this is just great. I wonder if this will go viral." And that, to me, is a very sad state of affairs. It's all very well to say we've got criminals, but aren't they criminal? the parable of the Good Samaritan. Some of these things come back to haunt us, don't they? And the fact that now, after stop and search has been more or less given the green light in London, the knives are come clattering in. It seems that half of London were carrying knives, and the other half probably still have their knives. It's a very sad state of affairs. So. Yes, I went to sleep with an easy conscience last night, but I do think there are things that we got to worry about. One of the things that I really do get a little bit concerned about is that I think we need a ministry of common sense. And I think that there should be attached to every local council, every local governance group, and certainly to Westminster, a small group, perhaps one person, who would be the Ministry of Common Sense. I don't have to tell you what needs sorting out in Westminster in terms of common sense at the moment. I mean, they've all lost it. There is no common sense up there. It's oh gosh, if it wasn't so fascinating to watch, but it's like watching a boxing match, or actually more like a wrestling match where 10 or 12 people end up in the ring at the same time, all punching one another and bouncing off the ropes and jumping over one another and so on and so forth. I mean, that to me is my image of Westminster at the moment. So if there was a all-powerful guru who insisted upon common sense, perhaps we might not have that spectacle, and perhaps we might get somewhere else. But what triggered this thought was that I see that Peacehaven having some problem between some councillors charged with bullying and one of the lady employees who brought the complaint is now the councillor saying, well, she wasn't entirely faultless. She can be a bit of a handful. Don't know the rights and the wrongs of it. Not really interested that much. What I was interested in was that it was Lewes District Council who were asked to go down and sort them out and say, this is the way that you should behave. And yet, everything that comes out of this council here is that similar situations are in place. That there is chaos, that people are leaving, and people aren't very happy with what's going on. And it may not be bullying, but somebody opens their mouth and the next thing they know is that they've been cited and given a written warning and so on and so forth. Is a former mayor of this town, superb chap, not going to name him because I don't think he would want to be named, but he said to me, Keith, he said, I don't want to be any part of politics, not in Lewes anymore. He said, it's gone so skew that you don't dare open your mouth. And I began to think that there's a lot of truth in that people are afraid to open their mouths because they're going to be attacked for being politically incorrect or saying something that they shouldn't or having an ism. Well, I just think that's all wrong. The whole basis of democracy is that we have a say. The original Greek democracy was that they met on a green and everybody had a vote. Shall we go to war? Yeah, hands up. Okay, much smaller and so on and so forth. But, that was democracy, admittedly. Foreigners and slaves could not vote. It was only the citizens. But nonetheless, it was a form of democracy which really was at the heart of every decision. Now, there is nothing that seems to bother councils and so on in terms of the voter, the electorate, and that's what Theresa May said yesterday in one of her rare interviews, where she actually impressed. Is I've only got one group of people to worry about, and that's the electorate. And if only some people would think of that. And I'm not so concerned about politicians. I mean, you can have a go at politicians, and they'll have a go back, and they do it rather well. What I am concerned about is that the people behind closed doors, the faceless people that we never see, those people who actually run councils, because councillors don't run councils. In fact, the council inside runs rings around them most of the time. But those are the people that just don't seem to care about democracy. And the fact that they're down there sorting out something in Peacehaven makes me shudder. Isn't it time that the whole thing became far more transparent, and that we knew what was going on behind the closed doors? Then we can make a judgment. But it's all very well for people to turn around and say, "Look, Keith, you're on about the council and you give them a bad time and so on and so forth." Well, yeah, perhaps some of the things that I say aren't true. I don't know. But the fact is that as long as they continue to be secret and overt, or covert rather than overt, then I'm afraid that all we can do is that we can only guess from what we see and what we hear. And if they're not prepared to make things clear and to come out into the open and be transparent, then that's what they get. They get a Keith Hayes, I'm afraid, ranting and raving. But at least one thing that it does is it does bring things to the fore. And I was privileged to sit next to I'm not going to mention his other name, Chris, on Saturday when watching the rugby. And at the end he said, "Oh, I watch your rants quite a bit." And he said, "I'm a bit unhappy about the political scene, and perhaps I might dip my toe into it." And I said, "Good for you," because he seemed like a very decent and nice and sensible man. Well, he was watching rugby, wasn't he, for one thing? He's in Seaford. If more people with common sense would get involved, not only at the political level, that is a rough and tumble and we're not all cut out for it, but at least get on to some sort of committees that could keep an eye on what's going on inside the council, behind those doors that go when you're standing at the front desk, and people stroll in and out. They love that. Never mind. I mustn't carry on. But we are in a mess, and it's a pity. What else is going on? The banks. Yes, the banks. I've got to have a go at the banks. The banks are also out of control, and it's just silly. One credit card company where I just pay on a standing order, and the standing order happened to come on a Saturday. Well, my bank doesn't fulfill standing orders on a Saturday. It doesn't do business through the computer on the Saturday. It has a staff on Saturday morning, but the computers aren't allowed to work on a weekend. It must be a computers union or something of the sort. Anyway, so it's sent it on Monday. It sent it yesterday. Bing, £12, please. Terribly sorry. I spoke to this lady and I said, my bank doesn't do that. Don't care. £12, bing. It's that sort of thing that gets the whole industry a bad name. And let's face it, who would ever want to admit that they were a banker nowadays? I sure as hell wouldn't. It's a bit like the local council, If you're front of desk, it's okay. You're there because you're capable of handling people and handling them well. But when you say banker and when you say council worker, those that aren't seen, oh my goodness me, it fills me with despair. Now, I'm trying hard to cut down on these rants, and I see I've been going for 15 minutes again this morning, and I shouldn't be. So whatever else I wanted to say, I'm going to leave, except that one of our programs that went around the country and received acclaim. I was stopped in the streets. I stopped in the streets of London because of it, not just down here, and given a few pats on the back. It's called The Bloody Tale, The Bloody Past of a Tiny Town. And on Mirador Television, mirador.com, miradortelevision.com, or one word, miradortelevision.com. We're replaying it one half episode at a time. So over the next 16 to 18 weeks, you can catch a bit of it. So if you do want to see a bit about Lewis that you might not know, and it's done in what the country seems to think is an attractive way, and it's not on the BBC, although the BBC did pirate it for one of its joint ventures, is the Together channel or whatever, tune in, miradortelevision.com. Might be one or two other things there that you absolutely would find interesting. Stuff you might think is rubbish, but that's okay. The one thing about web television is you can pick and choose. Nobody forces you to watch a program at 6 o'clock. You can watch it at any time that you like. So do take a dip. Do join us there. miradortelevision.com. Anything else? Well, tomorrow I shall talk to you about when England was a myth, when the civilized world thought that when you left France, you toppled off the edge of the world. Some people believed that, and they were pretty smart cookies. I'll talk to you about that tomorrow. For the moment, toodle pip, ta-ra.